destroyed a turret.
There, for grace I go. Become dust.
Shut down. Enemy double kill.
The past is a tapestry of what lies ahead. No dawn comes without darkness. Rest in their
Shut down.
the ages.
Your turret has been destroyed. An enemy has been slain.
Their death awaits.
Your team has destroyed a turret. An ally has been slain.
Perhaps shooting is meant to fall.
Unpleasant rumours were constantly coming from the Navy, which was supposed to be in a state of confusion. To me, this seemed more the creature of a few scattered rascals' brains than any concern of a large mass of people. In the hospital, everyone talked about the ending of the war, which they hoped would be soon, but no one counted on it being immediately. I could not read newspapers because of my eyes. In November, the general tension increased. Then, one day, suddenly and unexpectedly, the disaster was upon us. Sailors came in trucks, inspiring and rousing us to join the revolution. A few Jew boys were the leaders in this struggle for the freedom, beauty and dignity of our national people. None of them had been at the front lines or seen any action. 3 Orientals who were sent home from behind the lines by way of the so-called clap hospital, that is to say venereal disease, left Marxist flags behind, and these red flags were now hoisted up in the hospital. By that time my condition had begun to improve somewhat. The pain in the hollows of my eyes lessened, and I could distinguish rough outlines of my surroundings again. I had hopes of getting my eyesight back, at least enough so that I would be able to find some useful occupation. I did not, however, hope to be able to draw again. Still, I was on the road to recovery, when another monstrous thing happened. My first hope was that this high treason was only a local affair. I tried to cheer up some of my comrades with that reassurance. My Bavarian hospital mates in particular were willing to accept this outlook. Their temper was anything but revolutionary. I could not imagine that the craziness would break out in Munich because I thought the respect for the House of Wittelsbach
is the royal house of the German state of Bavaria.
Was sure to be stronger there than the will of a few Jews. I could not help but tell myself it was just a matter of a revolt in the navy which would be put down in the next few days. The next few days came, and with them the most horrible information I have received in my life. The rumours grew even more alarming. What I thought was a local matter was a general revolution. On top of it all, the shameful news came from the front. They were going to surrender. How could this be possible? On the 10th of November, the pastor came to the hospital for a short speech, and we found out the whole story. Those around me were extremely excited as we listened to his brief speech. The dignified old gentleman seemed to be trembling like a leaf as he informed us that the House of Hohenzollern.
The House of Hohenzollern means the noble families of Prussia, Germany, and Romania.
Could no longer wear the crown of the German emperors. The fatherland had become a republic, and our fatherland would certainly be under the control of other people in the future. He said we must beg the Almighty not to withhold his blessing of the transformation and not to forsake our people in the times to come. He could not refrain from saying a few words about the royal house. He tried to speak in appreciation of what it had done for Pomerania, for Prussia, for the German fatherland, and here he began to weep softly. Profound unhappiness came upon every heart in the little hall, and I do not believe there was a dry eye at this point. The old gentleman tried to continue and began to tell us that we would now have to end the long war and that the future of our fatherland would face heavy burdens. The war was lost, and we were throwing ourselves upon the mercy of the victors. He also said that the armistice would be accepted, and our trust was put in the generosity of our enemy. By that time, I could stand it no longer. It was impossible for me to stay in the room. Everything went black before my eyes again, and I staggered and stumbled my way back to the dormitory, flung myself upon my cot, and buried my burning head in the blanket and pillow. I had not cried since the day I stood by my mother's grave. In my youth, whenever I was gripped by the hard and cruel hand of fate, my stubbornness increased. When death took dear comrades and friends from our ranks in the long years of the war, I would have thought it almost a sin to complain. Were they dying for Germany or not? When I fell victim to the creeping gas that began to eat into my eyes during the very last days of that frightening struggle, and I suffered the horror of going blind forever, there was a moment when I was ready to lose courage. But then the voice of conscience thundered at me. "You miserable wretch! Who are you to whimper while thousands of souls are 100 times worse off than you?" So I bore my fate in silence. I had realized for the first time how personal suffering disappears in the face of the misfortune of the fatherland. It had all been in vain. All the sacrifices and starvation were in vain. The hunger and thirst that stretched for months without end were in vain. The hours gripped by deathly terror in which we still did our duty were in vain, and the death of the 2 million who gave their lives, it was all in vain. Surely the graves would open up, returning all the hundreds of thousands who had marched out believing in the fatherland. Surely they must open and send forth the silent heroes covered with mud and blood as avenging spirits to the homeland which had so outrageously cheated them of the highest sacrifice that a man can offer to his people in this world. Was this what the soldiers of August and September 1914?
The date 1914 refers to the Battle of Tannenberg, where the Germans decimated the Russians.
Had died for? Was this why the volunteer regiments followed their old comrades in the fall of the same year? Was this why these boys of 17 had died on the soil of Flanders? Was this the meaning of the sacrifice that the German mother made for the fatherland when, with an aching heart, she sent her dearest boys out, never to see them again? Was all of this so a mob of miserable criminals could dare to lay hands on the fatherland? Was this why the German soldier, exhausted by sleepless nights and endless marches, hungry, thirsty and frozen, had stood fast through burning sun and driving snow? Was it for this he had gone through the inferno of continuous artillery fire and the fever of gas attacks, never yielding, always remembering the single duty to guard the fatherland from enemy invasion? Truly, these heroes deserved a monument that says, "Stranger, when you travel to Germany, tell them that we lay here, faithful to the fatherland and obedient to duty."
These words are paraphrased from the monument erected at Thermopylae in Greece to the memory of Leonidas and his Spartan soldiers. Leonidas is considered a brave hero from the battle at the pass of Thermopylae.
But was the supreme sacrifice all we must consider? Was the Germany of the past worthless? Do we have any obligation to our own history? Were we still worthy enough to take on ourselves the glory of the past? And how could this deed be justified to the future? These are immoral and miserable criminals. The more I tried to understand this outrageous event, the more my cheeks burned with indignation and shame. The pain of my eyes was nothing compared to this wretchedness. Awful days and worse nights followed. I knew that all was lost. Only fools or these liars and criminals could hope for the enemy's mercy. During those nights, hatred grew. Hatred for the perpetrators of this deed. In the next few days I became aware of my own fate. I had to laugh when I thought of my personal future, which had caused me so much worry only a short time ago. It was funny to think of building houses on this ground. Finally I realized the thing that I had dreaded so often. The thing which was inevitable had happened, but I did not have the heart to believe it. Emperor William II had been the first German emperor to offer the hand of reconciliation to the leaders of Marxism, not dreaming that those crooks have no honor. While they grasped the imperial hand with their left hand, the other hand was reaching for the sword. With the Jew, there can be no understanding or agreement, but only the unyielding either-or. I resolved to become a politician. Chapter 8. Beginning of my political activity. By the end of November 1918, I was back in Munich. I went to the reserve battalion office of my regiment, which was in the hands of the new soldiers' councils. The whole administration was so disgusting to me that I decided to leave as quickly as possible. With a faithful friend of the campaign at my side, Ernst Schmidt, I travelled to Traunstein, a town in the southeast part of Bavaria, Germany, and remained there until the camp was broken up. In March of 1919 we went back to Munich. The situation there was shaky, which threatened to continue the revolution. Eisner's death only hastened the development, and it finally led to the dictatorship of the councils.
Kurt Eisner, the Bavarian socialist politician and journalist and organizer of the Socialist Revolution, died in February of 1919. He was assassinated by a lone assassin not associated with the Nazi movement. He previously led the Munich Revolution and became Premier of Bavaria.
Or, more accurately put, to a temporary Jewish domination, which was the original goal of those who created the revolution. At that time, plans bounced back and forth in my head. For days I considered options and thought about what could possibly be done. But the result of every train of thought was the sober realization that no one knew me, and I did not have the means to actually do anything. Later I will explain the reason why I could not even make up my mind which of the existing political parties to join. During the new revolution of the councils, for the first time, I behaved in a way that the Central Council found annoying. The later result was that I was to be arrested early in the morning of April the 27th, 1919. But the three fellows who came for me did not have enough courage when facing the muzzle of my rifle to complete their task, and ran off as quickly as they came. A few days after the liberation of Munich, I was ordered to appear before the Commission of Investigation to discuss the revolutionary events in the 2nd Infantry Regiment. This was my first, somewhat purely political activity. Within a few weeks I received orders to attend a course, or a series of lectures, which was being held for members of the military forces. Here, a soldier was supposed to receive a definite foundation for his thinking as a citizen. The only value in the performance to me was that it gave me a chance to meet like-minded comrades with whom I could discuss the real situation at hand. We were all firmly convinced that Germany could no longer be saved from the coming catastrophe, certainly not by the parties who committed the November crime.
The November crime refers to the surrender by Germany and formation of the Weimar Republic.
The Centre Party and the Social Democratic Party. Even if they had the best intentions in the world, the so-called privileged class nationalist organizations could never correct what had already been done. They lacked the full set of necessary fundamentals, and without them such a task could not succeed. Time has shown that our view was correct. In our little circle we discussed the formation of a new party. The basic idea we had in mind was the same that we later realized in the German Workers' Party.
The German Workers' Party, or the DAP, was the precursor to the Nazi Party.
The name of the movement, to be founded, must help us reach the broad masses from the very beginning. Without the ability to reach the masses, the whole task would be senseless and unnecessary. We hit on the name Social Revolutionary Party because the social views of the new organization actually constituted a revolution. But there was also a much deeper reason for the name. Attentive as I had always been to economic problems, my focus had been confined to the social problems. Only later were the bounds of my attention extended as I examined the Triple Alliance.
The Triple Alliance was the alliance between Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy, which Hitler detested.
This alliance was mostly the result of a poor assessment of the economic system, as well as a vagueness about the basis on which the German people could be sustained in the future. All these ideas rested on the opinion that money was the only product of labour and finances could be corrected by adjusting issues that help or hurt human activity. In fact, this unexpectedly revealed the true role of money, because it depended completely on the greatness, freedom and power of the state and people. This dependency requires financial sectors to actively support the state and people. It is a matter of instinct and self-preservation for the improvement of its own development. The necessary dependence of finances upon the independent free state would compel financial sectors to work for this freedom, power, and strength of the nation. This made the duty of the state toward finances comparatively simple and clear. It only had to be certain that capital remained a servant of the state and did not become the master of the people. The expression of this attitude could then remain within two boundary lines: preservation of a healthy, independent national economy on one side, and the safeguarding of the wage earners' social rights on the other. Previously, I did not realize there was a difference between capital as the result of work and a capital derived from speculation, investments. Not until I received a push in the right direction. This push was by one of the various gentlemen who lectured in the previously mentioned course, Gottfried Feder.
Gottfried Feder was an economic theoretician who was later a key member and guided the Nazi Party.
For the first time in my life, I heard a basic outline explaining the workings of international finance and loan capital. When I heard Feder's first lecture, the idea instantly flashed through my mind that I had now found my way to accomplish one of the key essentials needed in the foundation of a new party. In my mind, Feder's merit was demonstrated in his ruthless and vigorous method of describing the double character of the finances used in stock exchanges and loan transactions. He laid bare the fact that this capital is always dependent on the payment of interest. His explanations of all the basic questions were so sound that from the start his critics did not dispute the theoretical correctness of the idea, but they doubted the possibility that it could be carried out. What others considered a weakness in Feder's arguments, I thought was the strong point. The task of the plan's creator is not to lay out the details needed to fulfill the plan, but to explain the plan. He should be concerned less with the method and more with the goal. The essential truth behind an idea is the deciding factor, not the difficulty in carrying it out. The moment the plan's creator attempts to consider so-called convenience and reality instead of absolute truth, his work will no longer be a star seeking humanity, and will become nothing more than an everyday procedure. The program maker of a movement must determine its goal. The politician must attempt to reach it. Accordingly, the thinking of the plan's creator is determined by eternal truth, and the action of the politician is determined by the practical reality of the movement. The greatness of one man lies in the truth behind the theory of his idea and in the proper approach to the given facts. The greatness of the other lies in his practical use of them. The goal set up by the plan's creator must serve as a guiding light to others. The test of a politician's importance is the success of the plans and actions as they become reality, even though the final intention of the plan's creator can never be realized. Human thought can indeed grasp truths and set up goals as clear as crystal, but their complete fulfillment will be prevented by the universal imperfection and inadequacy of man. The truer the theory, and the more tremendous the idea, the more impossible it is to achieve as long as it depends on human beings. For that reason, the importance of the plan's creator cannot be measured by the achievement of his goals, but by their rightness and the influence they have on the development of humanity. If this were not true, the founders of religion could not be considered to be among the greatest men on this earth, since the fulfillment of their moral goals are not even close to being achieved. Even that, which is called the religion of love, is only a shadow of the will of its righteous creator, but its importance is the attempt to convey ethics and morals to the general development of human culture. This fundamental difference between the tasks of the political philosopher or plan's creator and the politician is also the reason why the two are almost never the same person. It is particularly true of the so-called successful, or more accurately, the unimportant politician, whose actions are limited to the art of the possible, as Bismarck defined politics. The more such a politician avoids great ideas and sticks to that which he can easily accomplish, the easier his job becomes, the more obvious his small victories, and always the quicker his successes will be. These successes have an earthly and brief life, and often do not live longer than the author. The work of this sort of politician is of no importance to future generations, since its present success depends solely on avoiding crucial problems and ideas. The solutions to larger problems are actually valuable for later generations as well as the current one. The accomplishments of goals which will have value and meaning for distant generations is usually unrewarding for their champions today, and are rarely accepted or understood by the great masses. The masses understand reductions in beer and milk prices better than deep plans for a distant time, when the benefits will only be seen by their future generations. A close relative of stupidity is vanity, and vanity is the reason the great majority of politicians will distance themselves from any difficult plans for the future. They want to avoid losing the momentary favour of the crowd. The success and importance of such a politician then lies entirely in the present, and their actions have no meaning for the future. This doesn't bother the small-minded. They are satisfied with immediate results. The political philosopher is a different matter. His importance almost always lies totally in the future, since he is frequently what we call a dreamer. If the art of the politician is considered the art of doing the possible, then the political philosopher is one whom it is said pleases the gods only when he demands the impossible. He will almost always have to give up fame in the present, but in its place, if his ideas are immortal, he receives glory from future generations. Once in a very long time, a politician and political philosopher may be one and the same, but the more intimate this fusion, the greater the resistance will grow to the politician's efforts. He is no longer working for necessities obvious to the average person, but for goals only a few can understand. His life is torn between love and hate. The protests of those presently around him who do not understand the man will battle against his struggle to accomplish something important for posterity. The greater the future will be for a man's work, the less the present can grasp it. The harder the battle will be, and the rarer success will be found. If success does smile on one man in centuries, a glimmer of coming glory may possibly surround him in old age. Even so, these great men are just the marathon runners of history. The glory of the present only rests upon the brow of the dying hero.